Awesome. Hi everyone, welcome. Sorry if I get a little nervous, I always do at the first. I hope I even out. I'm already shaking, but I'm gonna share my screen. Have QCT up. I do want to, in the document, the PDF that Jacqueline sent out, I asked AI what is custom quilting, and one of the big things that Carla was just saying was about planning. So planning, custom quilting requires a lot of careful planning on what you're going to do. Custom quilting is ruler work, free motion quilting, and computerized designs. So today, and I'm not going to go through all of this because you can go back through and read it. I didn't want to spend the time. So you can go do that. So I'm going to go through select and sew and then show you a little video of it physically being done in the software. So, and please don't be nervous about using select and sew and doing custom work. Custom work is a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. It just takes a longer time than an all over pattern. So you do have to plan for your quilt is going to be on the frame a little bit longer than when you were to do a pantograph and all over quilting. So I'm going to go ahead. Oh, and select and sew this is the pro version. It is the same also in the plus version. It is not in edge to edge, but of course it is in gold also. So I'm going to go into select and sew. I'm going to choose my first pattern. And over the years, I've always chose this butterfly because it's so close to the open button. So I don't know, kind of a little silly, but I always do that. So I'm going to go and we're going to talk about all our different placement methods that we have in the software. I think a lot of people see all these and don't know how to use them and then just get scared and back out. There are times when you might use a lot of these different placement methods on one quilt. So I'm going to start with on point. On point is just one placement method. You move your machine to one area and place it, and it's just one point. Our fill methods, we have down at the bottom, we have start. You can place your pattern with the start point or the end point or center. I really like center when I have an odd shape and I don't know the particular size. I'm gonna put that in. So center is really good, and corner. Corner is the one I use the most. And notice on the right hand side where it says size right here, when you're in one point and some other placements like 2 points, you can adjust the size of the pattern. We also have flips. You can flip the pattern. And then we have some rotates on this. So you would just move your machine to the top left of an area and place it, or the center. Our next one is 2-point placements. I'm going to choose a different pattern real quick. I'm going to go to this pattern. I created this in Panto. 2-point is great, especially if you don't have gold and you want to do a border and corners. You would sew out your left corner and then out your right corner, and then you can go into pantograph, create your panto, and then place where the other one stopped stitching and the other one started stitching, so it can match up really evenly. Also here with the 2-point placement, you have start point, end point, stretch. I would recommend if you are using Panto and you come back in to place it with that, you use stretch, or you can use fit. Stretch will do the number you do in Panto. So like if I place it out here and out here, it's going to stretch to my points. But if I hit fit, it's going to grow it. A lot of times fit will not even fill this area. Depends on the aspect ratio of your pattern. So the next one I'm going to talk about is block, but let me go change my pattern. I'm going to go into a block pattern. The block pattern just is the top left and the bottom right of your block that you can place. You just move your machine and set your points. Now, our fill method with block, and notice on the right-hand side it says margins. It no longer says size. So you can add a margin in here. I like to add margins to a lot of stuff I do. And you can also sew the ditch on this. Stretch I'm going to get rid of my margin. Stretch is going to stretch to all of your corners. As soon as the pattern touches one of the sides, it does stop stretching. Now fit will keep the aspect ratio of the pattern. So a lot of times the stretch works great, but it depends on what you've chosen for your pattern. Now I'm going to change it to 4-point placement. This is the placement I like a lot for blocks because my blocks aren't always perfect. So this helps me if I'm doing one of my blocks that aren't great at that. I am going to change my pattern real quick to the bear. So I have it on, so say I place my block and my block is not, it's stretched out. It's not a block. It's more of a triangle. See how stretch is stretching my bear, and it makes it. I'm pointing at my screen. Can you see me point? I'm sorry. It makes the bear fat, and then if I go to fit, then it changes back to its aspect ratio. And on 4 points, we have the flips, we have the margins again, and we have the rotate. So if you want to rotate your bear, you can do that. And then the next one we have is our triangle. And you need to change it a triangle pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and get a triangle pattern. So we have in the triangle, we have a couple of different things. We call this the best fit. And then there's this one. I have a hard time saying this word. I'm not even going to say it. But this one is a good for your triangles. And also we have the stretch where it's going to stretch it, and then the fit if you want it to keep the aspect ratio. With the triangles, it's really important that we do have flips and we do have margins, but it's more important that you flip your pattern using the placement versus the flips here in the program. So like if I wanted to flip this upside down, I am going to place my machine in simulation mode. When I click or tap on the screen, this little thing is your sewing machine. So I'm going to go ahead and place the top, and then I'm going to do my sides, or my bottom, I should say. And that is a good way to flip the triangle. A lot of times, and it depends on the pattern. If you use the flip in here, it can do some crazy things with the flipping. So best results, just flip it with your placement. And now we're going to do an on point. Let me go back to my pattern here. And since my pattern's not on point, I'm going ahead and rotate it. And now I have my on point placement. So and once again, this has stretch and fit. And then we have our flips. You can do your margins again. And then you just see me do the rotate. We also have ditch on here. So that is, I felt like I went through this way too fast. I'm sorry if I did. yeah, if you have some more questions, maybe we can get those at the Q&A. So I'm going to get out of the program and show you a little video.
In this video, we're going to show you how to place a pattern using 4 points, on point, and triangle placement onto your quilt top. This will be the same for plus and pro levels. We are going to be using Select and Sew. When setting your safe area, make sure you are setting it large enough to place your patterns without having to reset your area. Give yourself lots of room without going off fabric. Jerry is now going to choose a block pattern for her 4-point placement. The nodes are gray until you tap on one, turning it green. Move your machine to the top left corner of your block and tap the node. At this point, it does not matter which direction you move your machine. Just move your machine to each corner, tapping the corresponding node. Now Jerry's going to tap quilt and then pull bobbin. She is using the pull bobbin function of the software. There's other methods to pull the bobbin. You can move your machine to where the start point is and do a single stitch. You can go into the red toolbox and move to start and pull your bobbin manually there. And now it's going to do its tie-offs and stitch the pattern.
Fast forward, it's going fast. I feel like I should sing to you right now, but I don't think you want me to.
Once it has finished stitching, the finish button will come up. You can pull your bobbin or tap finish and pull the bobbin up manually. Now Jerry's going to change her placement method to on point. She's going to use the rotate function to rotate her block pattern. This message come up because the tip of this pattern happened to be outside of the safe area. Just go ahead and tap OK and then place your first node. Jerry's now going to move her machine to each corner, tapping the corresponding node. Now she's going to tap quilt and pull her bobbin. Notice how Jerry is hanging on to her threads while pulling the bobbin thread up. Don't pull it too tight or you'll skip pulling the bobbin, but just hang on to it, and then when it moves, grab your bobbin thread and then it will move back. When it moves back, you do want to pull on your bobbin thread a little bit because there's a loop underneath and you don't want that loop to be caught in your stitching. Now it has finished stitching. Pull up your bobbin or tap finish and then pull your bobbin thread up. Now we're going to change our pattern to a triangle pattern. And then Jerry's going to change her placement to the triangle placement. When placing a triangle pattern, it is easier to start with the top tip of your pattern. That way, when you're placing the bottom two, you're not twisting and turning your pattern. So Jerry's going to move the machine to the tip of her pattern, tap on the node, and then she's going to move it to the bottom. And notice as she taps the node, it starts to flip. You want to flip the triangle patterns using your placement versus flipping in the program. Then she's going to hit quilt and pull her a bobbin. And sew out the design. I hope this video has helped you so you can start your journey on custom quilting. It really is a lot of fun. Thanks for watching.
Okay, so now we're into our question and answer period. So if you have a question, go ahead and type it into chat and Marie can answer those. Marie, I know there was a question while you were talking about using the marking tool. Do you maybe want to do a quick little demo on how you would use the marking tool?
Oh yeah, I would love to. Let me share my screen again.
And while she's doing that, you can put your questions in there and then we'll get to the questions.
Yeah, and if anybody wants me to show you anything, add those in. And as I'm going through this, can someone read me the questions so I don't have to watch that? So the marking tool, I love the marking tool. It has a lot of awesome things it can do. It's the marking tool was developed so you can see what is going on with what's going on with your quilts. If you have to take the quilt out the frame and put it back on, you can use the marking tool and put some points on it to see if your placement is correct on when you place your next pattern to finish out a quilt. There's two places you can get to it under Select and Sew. It is in the plugins on the top right. When you're in Pantograph, it's in the plugins in the top right. So I'm going to go to the top right and go to marking tool. So this is the marking tool. You will move your machine to an area you want to mark to show on your screen what's going on your fabric, on your quilt, and just add a point. And then move your machine and add a point. And just keep adding a point until you have what you need. What's really cool about this is I can hit under marks, I can hit add, and I can give it, well, sorry, I already one. I'm going to give it just a number. You can give it a name. You can give it, just give it a number. And then now I can do a totally separate mark on a different area. I really like this tool. There's just so much that can be used, especially if you have an odd shape and you have no idea what size that pattern's going to fit in. Use the marking tool and go around and then place your pattern. Like say I wanted to place it in here, I would go back and change it to my 1 point center placement, and I could place my design in there, and I could shrink it while it's there, just to get it in my area. You can also sew your marks on the right-hand side above quilt. You can check mark. This will sew your mark and your pattern, but if you choose to just sew your mark, you can do that. I'm just going to proceed because I don't need to place my marks because my marks are already there. So it will sew your marks on here. A lot of cool. Some people use the marking tool to make sure their quilt is staying straight as a roller frame. So they mark the left side of your quilt edge and the right side of your quilt edge, and watch those marks as they roll their quilt to see how their quilt is as they're rolling. So it's pretty cool. And your marks always stay on screen until you come back and remove them. So it's a cool little feature. I enjoy it very much. So are there any other questions?
Yes, Marie, thank you for showing that. So the next question is, if you're using a design with a curve versus a design with points, what is the difference in the stitch length?
With a curve?
So would you use a different stitch length for a curved design versus something with a lot of points?
I would up my SBI on something that had a lot of points versus a curve. Because you want the program to hit those points. Like this curlicue that goes really fast, and you don't necessarily you wouldn't have to up your SBI for that. If you had a snowflake pattern, for some reason, that's the one I always point out. A snowflake pattern has a lot of points, and you would definitely want to up your SBI for something like that.
It also depends on the size of the design. So a really small pebble, you would want to raise the SPI as well to give you a more rounded look. If it's a longer stitch and a small design, it's not going to look like a circle. It's going to look like a square. So make sure that you're taking into consideration the size.
Yeah, thank you, Carla. That is that is so true. Yeah.
Okay,
Is
so
there
next
any?
question. When doing the triangle, is it correct to start at the center point and then do the other points?
Is it necessary?
Is it best to start with the center point right there in the triangle?
Are they talking about the top point of the triangle and the two sides? Because the triangle has a top and two ends, okay?
Yeah, it's always best to start with this one.
It is. Mm-hmm.
Because if I don't, say I start with this one and then maybe I move it this way, this one might not be a great design, a great one to show.
That's okay. It looks wrong. It's positioned
yeah.
wrong.
Yeah, see now how it flipped my pattern?
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't, even if I move this one out, it is flipped wrong. So it is very, yeah, it is good to start with that.
Triangles are tricky little buggers, and you can get them positioned wrong every time if you're not careful. So starting with the top is really important.
Yes.
All right. So just going back to the marking tool for a minute real quick, when you're using that marking tool, just to reiterate, do you need to use a pattern with it, or do you not have to have a pattern when you use the marking tool?
So when you come into Select and Sew, you have to choose a pattern. So unfortunately, there is going to, if you're in Select and Sew, there is going to be a pattern there. If you use the marking tool in Pandagraph, you have your Pandagraph screen there. You have your QI screen with your Pandagraph. So there always is going to be a pattern, but stitching it, you don't have to. But like what I just demonstrated, getting into Select and Sew, you do have to open a pattern before you get in. But you can always mark and reselect a different pattern if you want to.
And you mentioned that you can sew your mark, but can you explain what that means?
Say I have an odd shape and I want to sew around that shape, or say I don't have a pattern. Someone from around here earlier had like a star on their quilt, and they used the marking tool to mark around the star and just to sew on it. So I can add my marks around, even around an applique. I'm not going to do a star very good by myself. So let me do something else. So you can go around an object and then uncheck pattern and check marks. And then when you hit quilt, it tells you need to place it, but you place the mark already because you're doing that. So, and then now it will sew that out. Did that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you then, if you go back a screen, you have the option to select ditch. Can you explain what that means and why you would stitch the ditch?
Mm.
Stitch in the ditch is going to be around your pattern. So when I place this pattern and I go to quilt, here's my ditch. I still have pattern turned off, but here's my ditch. If you want to stitch in the ditch, this is a good little tool to use also.
It's that green mark that's around your design.
Yes.
And where you
Which
place
is,
it, that's how it stitches.
yes. And also this green line around your pattern is it's like your placement box. It's where you placed it, and that's your box it created, your drawing, so to speak, around your design. So, and you can do all three. You can do pattern, ditch, and mark if I choose to. I can stitch here, then it will move and do my ditch and then my pattern.
Okay, so while you have that triangle pulled up, why would selecting fit in a triangle placement maybe not feel like it's fitting the whole triangle?
Say that again.
So if you go back to triangle placement and you select fit, see how that's not filling the whole triangle?
Oh, yeah.
Explain
It's
why that
the
doesn't fit.
aspect ratio of the design. It's not stretching it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly what Carla said. It's the aspect ratio of the design that was created.
Okay, any other questions?
Trish had one, but I'm going to help her with that one. It's a little more complicated. So, yeah.
What was that one?
Oh, she wanted to make her stipple, micro stipple, and it's going into pantograph and setting it up and then placing it in the block. So it's a little more complicated, but we'll share it with you all. Okay.
Okay, so the one other question we have is about how fabric compensation works. I know we don't have time to do a full demo because that one takes a bit, but do you want to maybe just give a quick overview of where you would find that and what the purpose is?
Yes, fabric comp is really awesome. If you're doing borders and corners, if you're doing, say you're doing a horizontal sashing on your quilt, so you have really long seam lines, that compensates for any wonkiness, so to speak, of either the piecing part. No, none of us do that, right? And or if it's not on the frame correctly. Now, Fabric Comp is a gold feature, and I'm just going to show it to you real quick. I'm not even going to, okay, so I'm going to go get this pattern. Hang on, let me go get rid of my marks. And then I need to go back to 4-point placement. So I'm going to place this with 4 points and say it's a long seam line. So these points are a straight line, and your sashing might not be perfect straight or even perfect on the frame. And one thing I love about Fabric Comp is I don't worry about a lot of times when I do custom quilting, I don't worry about that quilt being straight on the frame because there's some little the fabric comp helps me out. So in Select and Sew, it's in plugins. It's going to be the same in borders and corners. And I would suggest if you use the gold feature of borders and corners, to always do fabric comp on your borders and corners. Hi, Jerry. Where are you, Jerry? Hi, Jerry.
Always. Absolutely must.
Always.
Where's the gold
always.
part? It's
I've got a
the
great
gold part, you guys.
example. I've got a
Yeah.
great example on the quilt I just finished, that homework quilt. I've
Yeah,
one row. I did not use the fabric comp, and you can tell.
yes. So anyway, just to demonstrate it real quick, you do need to get to the quilting interface screen. And if you don't know what our screens are called, just really quick, at the very top left, it says what screen we're on. So a lot of people can't find it because they hadn't gotten to this screen. So under plugins and then fabric comp. And this dark green line is my active line. So I would move my machine along this line and hit this plus button. Sorry, I don't want to go too fast. Hit this plus button and the pattern will shift in and out according to your line. And then you would go to you can hit the next on the left-hand side. I'm pointing at my screen again. I'm sorry, you can't see it. And then it doesn't matter if you go from left to right or right to left when you're doing the fabric comp. The one suggestion I would have with fabric comp is if you do a large comp, your pattern's going to start, depending on your pattern will start to get distorted.
Yeah, it's not good.
But a lot of times with using the fabric comp, especially when I do borders and corners, there's an area where I go up because I always either have a smiley face in the middle or a frowny face in the middle with my seam lines. Because once again, I'm not perfect of getting that on the frame. So I do notice that it's consistent from my top to the bottom. So if it might go up a lot, then this side will go up. So I do notice that a lot when I'm doing it. So you will see that. You can see where this is comped and that has been comped. And then now it's even and it will stitch out nicely. So yeah, even if you don't have it on the frame, fabric comp allows your pattern to go in and out. And you can't even tell when you pull it off the frame that you didn't have it on quite so well. Huh, Jerry? So
Or it makes your seams look really straight,
yes,
even
they
if
do.
they're not.
Yes. Yep. Do you have any other input on this, Carla?
Well, it just really helps you from sewing into the next border, especially if you have double borders and inside and outside. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an awesome tool. I love it. Use it all the time with borders and corners and my horizontal stashings and my vertical stashings. I don't do a lot of fabric comp in Select and Sew like a block, but I do know people that do use it, and it's worth the gold for sure.
I do use it, Marie, when I'm making a pantograph, but it's inside the borders and that very last zone at the bottom. And I want to make sure that it's not sewing into my border that's surrounding it. That really makes the difference and perfects that last zone because you can come up a little short or it can be off at the sides. So that you don't want to do the top portion. You just want to do the sides and the bottom. Okay.
Yeah.
So there are times that you want to skip a section when it comes to fabric comp, and you can easily do that. So learn it, you guys. And if you don't have it, it's something really you should try out.
For sure. It's awesome.
Watch us on YouTube. So watch your emails, you'll get the links. You can go back and watch other Quilters Playground classes. The at The Grace Company. That is our YouTube handle. So you can find us there. Don't forget to like us. Don't forget to share, subscribe, comment, all the fun YouTube things, and just help support that channel so that we can continue putting out this content for you.
Help us grow, you guys. Help
Yes.
us grow.
Yes. Also, bring your friends to the playground.
Yep.
Yep. And your moms and your
Yeah.
sisters. And I
You're
love
right,
it. I love
girls.
to get family members. That's so much fun.
Yep.